Thank you for joining today's webinar, a producer update on the eID rollout in South Australia. My name's Jodie Reseigh-O'Brien and I'm part of the AWI Extension South Australia team. AWI Extension South Australia is supported by the Australian Wool Innovation, the South Australian Sheep Industry Fund and the Department of Primary Industries and Regions. For more information on AWI Extension South Australia, you can go to our website and please give us a follow on social media. Today's webinar has been recorded and we'll upload the recording to the AWI Extension South Australia YouTube channel in the coming days. We welcome you to revisit the webinar yourself or share it with others. Today we have three speakers and the first is Pene Keynes. Pene was appointed to Livestock SA as the Biosecurity Extension Officer in 2020 to lead the Biosecurity Extension project funded by PIRSA's Red Meat and Wool Growth Program. Since then, she's taken on the role of Project Manager at Livestock SA, overseeing key initiatives that support South Australia's livestock producers. With a strong background in agriculture and a passion for improving biosecurity and industry sustainability, she continues to work closely with producers, stakeholders and policymakers to strengthen livestock management across the state. Thank you, Pene.
Thanks, Jodie, and thanks to AWI Extension SA for inviting me to speak today. So today Jodie's asked me to be here to give a little bit of a perspective on how we got here and why we're moving to electronic identification for sheep and goats. Like, while I know that there's a lot of people online and everyone has a different perspective on why or if this is, the way we should be going, I'm here to make you think about why you might and question, what if we didn't do this? So some of you, if you've seen my presentations before, will have seen this slide, and I like to put it back up every time just to remind people about how close and how real it is that foot and mouth disease or lumpy skin disease, for that matter, are real diseases that were possible to come to Australia. When this happened in Indonesia and this outbreak happened in 2020, we were getting criticised as industry and governments that we weren't doing enough. And the economic modelling suggests that it's going to be $80 billion out of our economy if foot and mouth disease was to come here. So I understand why people were saying we're not doing enough, but what we had to do in that instance was we collectively got together as industry and government and we really looked at the different strategies that we needed to take to mitigate risks of the disease outbreak, but also to slow and contain the disease if it was to come here. One of those things that we could do, and while there was a number of different things that industry and government have explored and are implementing, was our ability to improve the traceability of sheep and goat industries. And we could do that by using technologies that already existed and were being used for cattle. Really, the speed in which we can contain a disease outbreak really does have an impact on how we are going to be able to get through a disease outbreak. I'm going to use foot and mouth disease. There's a lot of different diseases that we could look at, but foot and mouth disease tends to be the one that we use because it's the bad one. It's the scary one that would really damage our industry significantly. As I said before, $80 billion over 10 years is pretty devastating. So I'll do a pretty quick and dirty demonstration of what would happen if there was a foot and mouth disease outbreak. So let's say one animal contracts foot and mouth disease. The disease then spreads rapidly and it continues to spread until a detection is made. So this is why surveillance is really critical. Overnight, international markets will close. Farms will be in lockdown and you won't be able to move any animals or sell any animals for a period of time. There'll be the tracing, and the speed at which tracing happens is really important. And as I said before, but if any delays happen, it really will impact and have consequences on, the amount of animals that are infected and how many we need to cull. The longer it goes on, the worse it gets for Australia's agricultural industry and economy, and the longer time it takes for us to return to markets. And that market access is really where we need to, is what we need to maintain. A huge amount of our red meat and wool product is exported, and we rely really heavily on those export markets. And if they were to close, we are going to be in a significant world of pain. So really, we need to, as Australia, be able to quickly provide proof of the disease eradication and a robust traceability before we can reopen any market. So this is kind of the reason that eID is being looked at and being implemented now, because any delays will have longer term impacts and damage our economy and your business further. So I just want to quickly give a real life, because while that in concept is you know, in theory is terrible, it actually happens. And in 2001, the UK had an outbreak of foot and mouth disease, and it took 7 weeks to trace affected animals. During this time, the disease was spread across the country, so it led to the culling of over 6 million animals, and I'm sure the consequences of that were also severe financial losses. You know, farmers with crippling debt, mental health struggles, and I'm sure that there would have been people leaving the industry, and there would be a huge economic fallout of that, not just for farmers, but also for the regional communities. The UK lost access to export markets as a result of this for 7 years. And that really does show how important it is, and that long-term consequence of any delays in traceability. So that 7-week period that the disease could run rampant and be uncontained really was the tipping point for, you know, 7 years locked out of export markets. And as I said before, for Australia, that would be pretty dire. It just really, I think this story really it highlights the critical role that fast and accurate traceability really has, and it will be able to protect our farmers and more generally the industry and our communities. So eID, I'll just quickly go through it. Most people know by now, but electronic identification is an eID electronic identification tag or a device that is attached to a sheep or goat, and it contains a microchip that can be read electronically in a fraction of a second by producers who have suitable readers, so either panel or handheld. I think the thing about it is that with tags and visual tags, there is a lot of human error involved in transcribing numbers, those types of things, whereas with electronic identification, it takes out a lot of that human error, and the speed and the ease in which this tracing can happen is incredibly improved. So in Australia, we have a national livestock traceability performance standard. We want to be able to achieve around 100% traceability within 24 hours of a period. Say the balloon goes up, we want to be able to do that. And for that animal, we want that to be able to trace back, you know, 30 days for where that animal's resided. We know because we can compare, Victoria has already implemented electronic identification. We can compare the difference between the visual tag system and the electronic identification tag system. We know that in the visual system, it's 70% traceability, well below that standard. And in eID, it's that 99.6% traceability, vastly improving that level to meet our compliance and what we are promoting to our trading partners, and the reason why we can maintain our trading access. So really, these kinds of stats are what drove us, and in an outbreak, these kinds of things, you know, 70% isn't good enough. Every hour, every animal, and being able to trace those animals rapidly really will help with one, containment, and overall being able to get back into the market. So I just will finish it off with the what if. So as a farmer, we can often be quite complacent, a bit of a she'll be right attitude. That whole 2020 seems like a long time ago when the foot and mouth disease was found in Indonesia. And sure, I understand that for a lot of people, electronic identification isn't a silver bullet. No one is suggesting it is. There are a lot of other things that we need producers to be doing and industry to be doing to be able to maintain our market access. But I suppose from where I sit, I think, well, if this does happen and the balloon does go up, I think I would want to know that everything is being done to protect our market access and getting back to trade as quickly as possible. And I wouldn't want to be the person that sat back and said, oh, you know, we didn't make this change, and you know that's had worsening effects and impacts on our family or our business. So and as an industry, I think that's really where we sit, is if we fail to act, it really leaves our industry vulnerable. And I think that's a really important thing to think about, that adopting eID, it's not just, you know, technology. Sure, the technology can help a lot of businesses and be really positive if you choose to implement it in a business, you know, business management way, but or production management way. But it really, the reason this change is happening is for biosecurity, speed of traceability, and an industry safeguard. Thanks, Jodie.
Thanks, Pene. Fantastic. Thank you for that. We've got questions for Pene. We'll take those at the end. Our next speaker is Tara Vandeleur. Tara works as the NIS officer for animal biosecurity and has worked for PIRSA since 2006. Tara specialises in livestock traceability and has focused much of her time on the implementation of sheep and goat electronic identification over the past few years. Tara's also a farmer living on their property near Tintinara in the upper southeast with their 3 sons. So thanks, Tara.
Thanks, Jodie. Thanks, Pene. So from here, I'm going to take you through what sheep and goat eID implementation will look like here in South Australia at a practical level, including what your legal responsibilities are and some of the common questions that producers are often asking about sheep and goat eID. So the National Livestock Identification System, or the NLIS, is the system in Australia that identifies and tracks livestock for disease and food safety purposes. It's used to record the movements of cattle, sheep, pigs, goats, bison, and buffalo. So the NLS combines 3 main elements that enable the lifetime traceability of animals, and they are that all livestock are identified with a permanent identification tag or device. The second is that all physical locations are identified by a property identification code or a PIC, and all livestock location data and movements are recorded on a central database. So basically we need tags, we need PICs, and we need a central database for effective traceability. So the transition to sheep and goat eID is not changing how this NLS works. These 3 elements remain the fundamentals of the system. However, it is changing the type of traceability information that we're using to track our sheep and goats through the system. So we're moving from visual mob-based information to individual eID information. So the NLS is underpinned by state and territory laws. In January this year, amendments to the Livestock Regulations 2013, which underpinned the Livestock Act 1997, came into effect in SA. The amended regs support changes to sheep and goat tagging and scanning and reporting obligations throughout the sheep and goat supply chain. Now, hopefully you're somewhat familiar with the eID implementation timeline for South Australia. Implementation in this state includes both the commencement of mandatory eID tagging and the commencement of mandatory eID scanning and recording on the NLS database. And the 2 components work hand in hand to create the eID traceability system that we're implementing Australia-wide. So just to run through the timeline, from 1 Jan 2025, all sheep and farm goats born on or after the date must be eID tagged before leaving the property of birth. Processors begin scanning and recording sheep and goats that are coming through their facility with eID tags, and property to property or P2P movements must be eID scanned and recorded as well. From 1 July of this year, sale yards will begin scanning and recording sheep and goats that come through their facility with eID tags. And from 1 Jan 2027, all sheep and farm goats must be eID tagged before leaving the property. This timeline means that from 1 Jan 2025 to 1 Jan 2027, we'll be operating in a hybrid traceability system in South Australia, whereby both the mob-based system and the eID system will be in place. This 2-year transition period was put in place in part to offset the cost burden to producers, allowing some of the older stock to move out of the system with their existing visual tags. But from 1 Jan 2027, however, sheep and goat eID will be fully implemented and operational in South Australia, and this means that all sheep and farm goats moving anywhere will have an eID tag, and all movements will be eID reported on the database. So in terms of eID tagging, we have the 2 dates. And again, 1 Jan 2025, so January 1st that just went, all sheep and goats born on or after this date must be identified with an NLS accredited eID tag before leaving the property of birth. And the second date again, 1 Jan 2027, all sheep and goats must have an NLS accredited eID tag before moving off property. So even though this is reasonably simple, there are still some common questions that producers are regularly asking, and these are very valid in relation to the practicalities of how they actually meet these dates. So I've included 5 of the most common questions for us to run through now. So question 1, do I now need to put an eID tag in an older sheep or goat currently tagged with a visual tag that were born before 1 Jan 2025? And the answer is no. They can continue to move through the system with visual tags until the 1st of January 2027. Second question, will I need to double tag visually identified older sheep who are visually tagged at the moment after 1 Jan 2027? And the answer to that is yes, but only when they move off property, and that's even if they're going direct to slaughter. Third question, do I need to follow the year of birth colour system in colour sequence? No, you can use any of the 8 colours at any time other than pink. That's reserved for a post-breeder tag. So following the year of birth colours in set sequence does remain voluntary in South Australia, as it is in all other states apart from Western Australia. However, only the 8 colours in the year of birth rainbow are NLS accredited. So other colours such as brown and grey are not year of birth colours and are not NLS accredited and therefore not registered your pick on the database. These colours, again, such as brown and grey, have no traceability benefit. So again, you can use any colour at any time, but it must be one of the 8. Next question, do I need to buy a supply of pink post-breeder tags, eID tags as well? And the answer to that is probably. If you buy sheep or goats in from other sources, it's a good idea to have a supply of post-breeder tags on hand just in case of losses, which leads us into the last common question, what do I do if an animal loses its eID tag? If the animal was born on your property, you can apply another breeder eID tag in any colour of the 8. If the animal was not bred on your property, so you've bought it in, you must apply a pink post-breeder eID tag that's registered to your pick before the animal moves off property. From tags, now we move into the responsibilities of scanning and recording eID sheep, goat and goat movements on the NLS database. So again, from 1 Jan 2025, producers who conduct property-to-property movements, P2P movements, must record individual movements of sheep and farm goats identified with eID tags on the database within 2 days of arrival. Processors must record individual movements of sheep and goats identified with eID tags on the NLS database within 2 days of slaughter, again from 1 Jan 2025. And from 1 July 2025, sale yard operators must scan sheep and farm goats that are identified with eID tags and record these movements on the database. The schematic that I've got shown here shows us all the different ways where sheep and goats move through the supply chain and who's legally responsible for carrying out the scanning and recording of those movements on the database. The first and important point to mention is that the same parties are still responsible for recording the movement on the NLS database in the eID system as they were with the mob-based system. The only difference in the eID system is that animals are scanned and individual information is recorded compared to just visual information. But for a reminder, we're just going to go through this really slowly so we can get clear in our minds who is responsible in the different circumstances. So I'll start on the left with the first blue dot. So when you're buying in eID tags, the tag manufacturer will upload your eID tags to your pick on the database. So this means that you don't have to scan those tags when you get them in the mail or you pick them up, and you don't have to scan those tags when you apply them to your lambs or goats at marking time. They're already registered to your database account. However, if you're buying at an online auction, such as Auctions Plus, for example, it's your responsibility to scan and upload those movements to the database within 2 days of those animals arriving onto your property. If you're buying at an on-farm public auction, so that might be an on-property ram sale, an on-property clearing sale, etc., it's the selling agent's responsibility to do the scanning and recording. If you're moving your sheep or goats to an agricultural show or an event such as a shearing competition or something alike, it's the event organiser's responsibility to do the scanning and recording on the database. However, if you're moving sheep or farm goats for agistment purposes, it's your responsibility to make sure that those animals are scanned and recorded on the database within 2 days of that movement. If you're moving or selling your animals to a processor, it's the processor's responsibility to do the scanning, uploading. And if you're either selling into a sale yard or buying out of a sale yard, it's the sale yard operator's responsibility to record the movements on the database. And lastly, we've got the last blue dot up the right. So if you're moving, if you're receiving animals directly from another property, even if you have an agent involved, you, the receiver of those animals, must scan and record the eID devices on the database. And this includes if you're moving between different picks that you own yourself. So as you can see, there are only 3 circumstances, which I've highlighted with the green pointy finger, where you, the producer, must scan and record the eID information on the database. So again, if you're buying via an online auction, such as Auctions Plus, if you're moving animals for agistment purposes, or if you're moving sheep privately onto your pick direct from another property, so not through a sale yard or an on-farm auction, and this includes moving animals between properties that you own yourself. So even after going through all of this, there are still some common questions. So again, I've got 5 of the top 5 questions that we're often asked on this matter. First question, if I buy sheep or goats in privately direct from another producer, isn't my agent responsible for scanning and recording on the database? The answer is no. The producer receiving the animals is legally responsible for this, even if there is agent involved in the transaction. And that leads us into a second common question is, can I make an arrangement with my agent to carry out my NLS scanning and reporting obligations on my behalf? And the answer is yes, but it's still your responsibility to ensure that this is done. You have ultimate legal responsibility, and it's best to have this agreement in writing. Number 3, I have a closed flock and only buy rams via an on-farm ram sale. Do I need scanning equipment? And no, you don't. Sheep and goats bought through an on-property auction are scanned and recorded by the selling agent. You're only required to be able to scan and record sheep if you move them onto your property in those 3 circumstances that we've just gone through. 4, if I have multiple properties with different pick numbers, do I need to scan and record movements of animals between these properties, even if I own the properties myself? And the answer is yes. Any movement of eID sheep and goats to a different pick must be recorded on the NLS database, even if the ownership doesn't change. And this movement is considered a P2P movement. And lastly, the common question, doesn't the ENVD automatically record the movement of animals on the NLS database? The answer to that is no. The ENVD is only an electronic version of the NVD. Responsible parties must still scan and record the movement of sheep and goats on the database. So to be clear, even if you complete an ENVD online, that does not mean that the animals are being recorded on the database. I'll quickly touch on this new app, NLS Buddy, that can help producers carry out both eID and MOB-based movement recording. It's been designed by a Victorian colleague for the small processing sector, but it has some really great benefits to the producer sector as well. So the app is free to download and a very simple way of recording your sheep and goat movements on your phone or your tablet rather than logging on and using the database itself. It can record both mob-based movements and eID movements and a combination of a mixed consignment of both visual tags and eID tags. And it can connect via Bluetooth to many scanners. So we highly recommend you having a look at this. And we do have a YouTube tutorial video coming out soon on the AWI Extension channel about the NLS Buddy app. So just producer responsibilities in short, you must tag sheep and goats with NLS accredited eID tags according to the SA implementation timeline. The change to eID does not change who is responsible for recording movements on the database. You, the producer, are responsible to scan and record animal movements in the following circumstances: P2P movements when you're receiving, including moving between pigs you own, buying via an online auction, and moving to and from an adjacent property, all of those within 2 days of the animals arriving onto your property. And again, your agent is not legally responsible to scan and record movements for those movements in those particular circumstances. Just a quick note on harvested rangeland goats. From 1 Jan 2025, harvested rangeland goats will continue to access a tag-free pathway from property captured direct to a processor or direct to a registered goat depot. This pathway will come via a new harvested rangeland goat accreditation accessed through LPA. HRGs must meet a strict definition, and when accredited, harvested rangeland goats must move with a specific harvested rangeland goat ENVD. And harvested rangeland goat movements are still recorded on the mob-based database. So to finish up, I just thought we'd cast our eyes up and see eID in the big picture. So according to some recent data, 19 million international travellers visited Australia in the year ending September 2024. More than 2.5 million shipping containers entered Australian ports, and tens of millions of packages arrived to Australia via post. The likelihood is that one day an emergency animal disease such as foot and mouth will enter Australia and impact the livestock industry. The odds are stacked against us. eID, of course, will not stop us getting foot and mouth disease or any other animal disease, but it will provide us an important tool to help quickly identify, trace, control, eradicate, and ultimately regain critical export markets access as quickly as possible. Because the greatest cost of a disease such as foot and mouth on the livestock industry is not the cost of eradication or even in the cost of stock losses, although this is devastating. The real cost is in the time it takes us to regain the market access that we've lost. So the benefits of eID, of the eID traceability system are industry-wide. Thank you for that. I'll hand back to Jodie.
Thanks, Tara. We've got a couple of questions that have come through. There's two sort of questions here. I'm having a bit of problems with my eID tags. They're breaking and falling out. And another one is they're missing tags already from their animals on their property. What do they need to do if they're having tag issues with their eID tags?
Okay, first of all, I'll just answer the tag retention or losses issue that you mentioned. So all accredited NLS eID tags have gone through a strict 3-year accreditation process, and that tests both readability and retention. However, its tag placement is really important for good tag. Tag placement, is really important for good tag retention. So it's really important to make sure you follow the tag manufacturer's recommendations regarding placement. And if you do have any issues that you're not happy with, you can contact your tag manufacturer or your rural reseller or Integrity Systems company. The second question, I think, was about missing tags that are currently on your property.
Yep.
So I'm assuming there may be missing visual tags. So if the animal was born on your property, before the 1st of January of this year, they will only need to be retagged with a visual NLS tag before they leave your property. If they were not born on your property and have lost their visual tag and born before 1 January, they will need a pink post-breeder visual tag before they leave your property again. And reminding, of course, that from 1 Jan 2027, all movements off property will need an accredited NLS eID tag.
Thank you. Another one here along the same lines. What are the requirements for hobby farmers, and are they required to buy scanning equipment?
Well, if you have livestock on your property of any type, including sheep and goats, you will need a property identification code for that property, and you'll need to follow the tagging requirements before those animals move off of your property. So yes, you will need this. You are considered part of the greater, broader sheep and goat industry and must follow the same requirements that all other farmers do.
And in regard to scanning equipment?
Oh, sorry, missed that bit. Again, it just depends on how you bring animals onto your property. So if you bring animals onto your property in any of those three circumstances, those three ways that we've gone through quite a few times, they're either buying from an online auction, moving for agistment, or buying directly from another, or moving directly from another property, you will need to be able to record those individual movements on the database. There is a method of manually reading the tag number on the outside of the tag and actually plugging that into the database yourself. So if you're only dealing with handfuls of sheep, for example, if they're pets, or you've bought some sheep onto your property for, to mow the grass or whatever, it may well be easy enough to just physically read the tag and then type in the numbers onto the database. If there are many sheep, though, it's far better to have them scanned. You could either borrow if you don't have a scanner yourself, you can borrow potentially one from a neighbour, or you can speak to your local agent about whether they're happy to scan them on your behalf. Again, remembering that you need to make sure that that's actually done, so you need to follow that up.
Thank you for that. And perfect segue into our next speaker, which we'll get to in a minute, that Julie Wedderburn, who's going to talk about the producer rebate for equipment. Another question here, Tara, is about how do I record my sales and purchases of mobs under my PIC on the database? So is there somewhere people can go to get a bit more information on how to do that?
Yeah, look, there's quite a few either fact sheets or little tutorial YouTube videos that are available on the Integrity Systems Company website. You can also visit our PIRSA eID website, or not the eID website, but just the PIRSA website, sorry, to get some information about how you record mob-based movements. And again, they follow the same requirements. So you only need to record a mob-based movement, again, if you've moved those animals onto your PIC in any of those three circumstances.
Yep, excellent. Yeah, I must say there's some great resources on ISC, so please jump on their website if you're looking for anything to do with movements or the database. There's a great resource there, and you can also give them a ring. Another one here, Tara, is what's the alternative to physical ear tags for animals that can't have physical ear tags? So I'm sure we're talking about the goats. Yep.
Yeah, the only alternative available is the eID hock strap or leg strap, and that's really only used for earless goats, which are a thing. Other than that, there are no alternatives. So it's an ear tag.
Yeah, and just remembering they've got to be put in when they leave your property. Yes.
Yeah.
The next one is about, has the paperwork changed for sales and sheep movement since we've introduced eID?
No, movement documents is the same. All sheep and goat movements moving to a different PIC must have a movement document. That's commonly the NVD or the ENVD, but there is also an alternative waybill document that you can download from our website. And also you still need the National Sheep Health Declaration for any movements of sheep.
Excellent. Another question here. We've got about 15 sheep which we use on our property and eat the meat. I'm assuming their sheep are used for their own purposes. Do I need to have these tags?
Yes, you will, unless you're going to slaughter them on property and carry that out yourself on the property. But if you move those animals to a butcher or an abattoir or a processor for processing, even if the meat itself is coming back to your home for consumption, they still need to be NLS tagged.
Fantastic. They're the questions I've got at the moment. If people have got other questions, please pop them in the Q&A box, and I'll pose those to Tara at the end of the session. We've also got Denise Vandeleur, who also works for PIRSA with the NIS team online, so she's also available to answer any questions. But no, thank you for Tara. That's great. I probably that diagram you showed earlier, the schematic, that's available on the PIRSA website. So any questions about movements and responsibilities, jump on and have a look at that. It's a great schematic to explain your responsibilities. So thank you, Tara. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. And I'm pleased to welcome Julie Wedderburn. So Julie's worked for PIRSA for over 10 years in various roles in project management and coordination, policy advice and program delivery. For the past 18 months, Julie's been the project coordinator of eID implementation in the Major Programs Division, working with Biosecurity Division to support Stage 1 eID implementation. So at this time, I'd like to welcome Julie to talk about the producer rebate. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Jodie, and thanks, Tara, for providing a good overview of producer requirements. And as Jodie said, it is a good segue into the essential equipment rebate that PIRSA has available to producers who have a history of moving animals onto property directly from another property. So it's a 75% rebate, and it's for those property to property movements. So moving from one pick to another pick directly, that may be also under the same ownership. Also the buying stock via an online auction or buying stock in privately, and also moving stock between two properties, two different picks for adjustment purposes. And really it reflects the purpose of the rebate is to support that equipment purchases to assist producers who do have that responsibility for recording and reporting movements into the NLAS database under those sort of three scenarios to help them purchase equipment if they think that it will assist them. But as Tara also mentioned, if it's just a handful of animals, that can also be done manually. So it's really an individual sort of decision about do I need equipment, and what is the best equipment then to meet my needs. So the rebate opened on the 7th of August 2024, and it closes on the 30th of June 2025, or when funding is exhausted, whichever occurs first. And the guidelines are available on our PIRSA website as well. So the 75% rebate is available to a maximum amount depending on the quantity of P2P movements of animals over the past 3 years. And that's based on average movements over that 3-year period. And for average movements over the 3 years of 100 or less animals, a 75% rebate up to $500 is available. For average animal movements over the past 3 years of between 101 to 5,000 animals, that rebate is a 75% rebate up to $2,000. And for any animal movements averaged over the past 3 years of 5,000 plus, then a 75% rebate up to $20,000. And the eligible equipment, so there's a range of scanning equipment and also a tag applicator. So you've got a pocket reader, a stick or wand reader, panel reader, single lane panel reader, dual lane panel reader, and an auto drafter. So that just is sort of the range of eligible equipment, and really it reflects, I guess, the range of equipment available, and really it's up to the individual producer to determine which ones would best suit their needs in terms of scanning the movement of individual animals and then uploading that into the NLAS database. What equipment is not eligible? Second-hand equipment is ineligible. Weigh crates or scales, training, the cost of installation or retrofitting by a staff member of the applicant, any ongoing operational maintenance or replacement costs, any structural modifications to yards, and any equipment purchased prior to 8 June 2023. The 8th of June 2023 is the date that the Minister came out and announced the South Australian Government's support for the equipment and other rebates such as tags. So that's the key date to keep in mind as well. So what movements onto property are ineligible for the purposes of the essential equipment rebate for producers? So any movements that are onto property directly from a sale yard, they are not counted in your annual average movements of animals over the 3-year period. This is because the sale yard is responsible for the scanning and recording the movement into the NLIS database. And also head movements onto property from an on-farm public auction. It is the agent who is responsible for scanning and recording movements into the NLIS database. And we have separate rebates available for sale yards and agents to support their reporting obligations. So over the delivery of the program and the producer rebate, there's a few common questions. So I'll just run through these. How do I apply for the rebate? We have an online application form, which is available at the sa.gov.au link, and it's also available, that link is available on our PIRSA website. And it is a 2-step process. So you must be registered with My PIRSA. So some of you are probably already registered. So it'd be a matter of just logging in with your existing registered email and password. If you haven't got a registration, then you will need to sign up and put your details into My PIRSA. Once you are registered, you will get a notification email to say you are registered with My PIRSA. And then the second step, you will need to navigate to the essential equipment rebate producer tile to access the online form. And the online form contains a range of information and questions that you will need to complete. And what supporting information do I need to submit with my application? So as part of the online form, you'll be asked to upload tax invoices, evidence of payment, your NLIS history report, so the summary of livestock transferred onto PIC, generated from the NLIS database, and a signed acquittal form. Another question is, am I eligible if a livestock agent completes the P2P transfers on my behalf on the NLIS database? So yes, you are eligible as a producer if a third party undertakes your P2P transfers into the NLIS database on your behalf. You can still apply for the rebate. This is as long as the animals are moving directly onto property, directly from another property, and not from a sale yard or on-farm public auction. And you will need to go into the NLIS database and generate the report. So how do I generate an NLIS history report? Integrity Systems has many how-to guidelines, how-to guides online. And there is one on how to view the livestock transferred onto or off your PIC device report. And that will actually be viewed on the screen, and then you can access and export that information by clicking on the export button on the screen, and the report will come through as a text file. And once opened, you can then save it as a CSV file, which then opens into Excel. The NLIS database also has a hotline that is 7 days, and also the email for any sort of queries that you may have in relation to the NLIS system and generation of reports.
Thanks, Julie. That's a great summary of the producer rebates that are available. Thank you for that. And I've actually got a couple of questions, Julie, that have come through about the rebate. One here is about does the rebate cover small farmers without a GST registered business? So if they're not registered for GST?
Yes, so we will accommodate businesses that aren't necessarily registered for GST, but you will still need to be as part of the guidelines. You will still need to be registered as a primary production business, registered with the ATO as a primary production business.
Excellent. So, yep, if you've got any other questions about eligibility there, I think it's jump online and you can send an email through to the PIRSA eID team, and they can give you a hand. That's right, Julie, with all the grants
Oh,
team.
yes, certainly. Yes. Yeah, just we've got our email address. So just send us an email and we can either give you a call back or respond to your questions via email.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Julie, for that. That's the only questions I've got on rebates at the minute. I've got one, and I might hand over to Denise to answer this one. Denise, once sheep have been to the abattoir, how are they still traceable?
Okay, at an abattoir, what they do, particularly the very large ones, is that they actually allocate every animal a body number, and that is maintained throughout the entire kill. So, and it will also get allocated a lot number. So, for instance, if a group of animals came directly from a producer, they would be given a lot number, and then every animal along the chain would be given a body number for that day. So even in the chiller, they know which body goes with which lot and where it's come from.
Great, thank you, Denise. And while you've got another one here. What are the obligations if a sheep, which we all know happens, gets into the neighbours that wasn't planned in terms of movements and recording that?
That one is
Can I say you hope you get it back?
yeah, one, you hope you get it back. Two, into the future with the ID, you will actually know if an animal is sold by your neighbour, for instance, because you'll get, if you've got an NLS database account, you'll get an email about it. Technically, you can actually do a transfer to say that it's gone to the next door neighbours. It's what the thing is, there will be times when you don't even know if the animal's gone into the neighbours and then come back out. So it's a bit of a tricky one. But ultimately, if you do identify that an animal has gone to the neighbours, then you can do an actual transfer.
Julie, question about tags, and do you get any discount if you buy smaller numbers of tags, say 50 to 100 for your smaller mobs?
Oh, yes. So tags at the moment, there is a point of sale discount for the year of birth colour tag for this year, which is white. So that discount is from 1 January 25 through to 30 June 25. So that discount is available for any number of tags that you purchase, either directly from a tag manufacturer or through a reseller, and that discount will be applied at the point of sale, and that's a 95 cents discount. There is another option if you purchase a colour from the rainbow that is not white, so non-year of birth colour for this year. You do have the option to submit a rebate to PIRSA, and that will be a 50% rebate of the cost of the tag, eID tag, up to 95 cents. So there's two ways to get a discount or a rebate on those tags purchased.
Excellent. Next question, which is one I've had the last couple of days, is the rebate going to continue beyond June 2025?
I think the only firm messaging we have at the moment is we've got our current point of sale discount, and that runs through to 30 June 25, and our rebate for non-year of birth coloured tags is available also through to 30 June 25.
Excellent, thank you. There is more information about the producer rebate for equipment on the PIRSA website, correct, Julie? Yep.
Yes, for equipment, there's information also about the expanded eID device rebate, which is the one that you need to apply to PIRSA for. So that is available for any non-year of birth coloured tags, essentially purchased in 2023, 2024, or through to 30 June 2025. You can't get that if you've already got a point of sale discount for black tags purchased last year, or white tags purchased this year that have received the discount. But there's further information on our website for that as well.
Julie, I've just got a question. Sorry, I might just go back to your slide about who's eligible. Could you just outline who is eligible for the equipment rebate and why it's limited to those people? So those three
Yes.
movements.
Yes, and so those three movements, it's limited to those three movements because it comes back to who is responsible for recording and reporting those movements into the NLIS database, and it acknowledges that in some situations, as scanning equipment will assist the producer to meet those responsibilities, particularly if there's larger numbers of animals being moved. So that's sort of the rationale in terms of access to the equipment rebate, and it sort of aligns with what Tara was explaining, that if you're bringing buying at online auction, then the responsibility is for the purchaser to have those scan and upload that information. If you're moving for agistment, then that is the producer's responsibility as well to move to put those and record those movements into the NLIS database. And also, if you're moving directly from another property to different PICs, but they could be under the same ownership. So they're the sort of three scenarios there.
Yep, and so it's for traceability purposes. It's not for management purposes. It's for traceability.
Oh, for traceability. Yes, it's those recording and reporting that movement of animals into the NLIS database. It's not for the the value add that eID has for on-farm decision making and management of animals.
No, thank you for that. Tara, I might get you to unmute. Question here about what can I do with leftover tags? Can I use them the next time the colour comes around, or can I use them now?
Yeah, look, as long as they're one of the 8 colours in the rainbow that are NLIS accredited, you can use them at any time. So following the year of birth system in set sequence, as I think I touched on earlier, is voluntary in South Australia. So really you can use any colour at any time as long as it's one of the 8 colours. So if you do have some left over, you can use them on this year's lambs, for example.
Excellent. Another one here is, and I think there was a bit of confusion, I know, at an event I was at recently. The only state, correct me if I'm wrong, that has mandated year of colours is Western Australia. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you. Another question here is, how do you record eID sheep that die on the property?
You can, if you can get the ear tag and bring it back to the office if you're happy to cut it out of the sheep's ear, or you can write the outside, like the visual NIS number that's written on the outside of the tag. If you can transcribe that into your little notebook and bring that back to the office, you can get it onto the NIS database and actually record that animal as deceased. So that removes it from your pick. That removes that device from your pick on the database.
Tara, I've got another question here about how do we update the NIS database?
Thanks, Jodie. Well, firstly, the NIS database can be accessed via your MLA account, your My MLA account. So when you register for your My MLA account, you can link other related accounts such as your LPA accreditation and your NIS database account. So this way you just have the one entry point to access all of those different services. So tutorials and fact sheets are available on the ISC, Integrity Systems Company website, that can demonstrate how to record movements on the database and other database functions. You can also download the NLS Buddy app, where you can easily record both mob-based and eID movements.
Great. The next question here, Tara, is about tags. And is the year of sequence colour in South Australia the same across other states?
The year of birth colour system is the same across states. We still have the same colours in the same orders, and they're all NLS accredited colours and NLS accredited tags. However, it's only mandatory, following the set sequence is only mandatory in Western Australia. All other states, it's a voluntary system. So you must tag with NIS accredited tags of any colour in that 8 colour rainbow, but you don't need to follow it in set sequence unless you want to.
Tara, I might just throw another question in there that I had a producer ask me about brown and grey tags. And so are they eligible tags under NLIS?
No, brown and grey tags are not part of the year of birth colour system and are not NLS accredited. So those brown and grey tags will not be registered to your database account.
Thank you. One more here for you, Tara. What happens if you've bought sheep without tags?
Well, firstly, it's important to point out that livestock should not be moved or sold anywhere without NLS tags. However, if you find yourself in this circumstance where you have got non-vendor bred animals, or you've bought in animals that don't have tags, you must apply a pink post-breeder tag to those animals before they're moved off your property. So,
Tara, they don't need to be eID until what date? The post-breeder tag?
It depends whether those animals that you have bought in were born before 1 January of this year or after 1 January. So if they were born before 1 January of 2025, you can apply a visual NLS tag to those animals in the pink post-breeder colour. But if they were born after 1 January of this year, then you'll need to apply a pink eID post-breeder tag.
Fantastic, thank you for that. I've got one more here for you, Denise. What happens if a sheep loses a tag for some reason, and how do you remove that from the database?
Okay, in terms of sheep losing tags, at some stage you can actually make them inactive through your database account. So it's saying you don't know where this tag is. As far as you're concerned, it's not on your property. So there is a device status functionality in your database account that you can make the tag inactive. And it might be a couple of years before you do that. For instance, you've lost tags over that time. You might do a pick reconciliation after shearing, for instance, or bringing all of the sheep in for various things, and you've been able to scan the whole flock, and you've identified all of your you've been able to scan all of the animals that are present on the property and know what tags you've got on hand, so you could do a pick reconciliation. But you certainly would make them inactive through your database account, and there are tech tips available on the NLS account on how to do that.
Fantastic, thanks for that. I thank the other participants tonight that have provided some comments and their perspectives on eID, so thank you for those. I've certainly read those and I'll share them with our presenters. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined tonight's webinar. It's been great to share where we're up to in South Australia with the rollout of eID. Pene, Tara and Julie, thank you for presenting tonight to our audience your insight and expertise in eID. So thank you and have a lovely evening.